Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthan.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthan, founder of the VeteranCrowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Hey, welcome everybody. This is your host, Bob Louthan. Welcome to The Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. Our guest today is a U.S. Army veteran, a graduate of the University of Virginia, and now a candidate back at the University of Virginia at the Darden School for her MBA. Gretchen Pace is a Bronze Star recipient, combat veteran in Afghanistan, founder of Goose Willow, a home goods company. Boy, have you got your hands in a lot of stuff right now. Gretchen, welcome to the program. Thank you for stepping into the spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
So first question, you're taking the entrepreneurial trail. You've started a business of your own. Tell us how that happened. How did you discover you were an entrepreneur? And tell us a little bit about the business. You're doing some very interesting home goods, some stuff that has a patriotic spin to it, among other things.
Yes. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So it was something that I was familiar with and comfortable with. My dad has a fencing company and my mom did landscaping. So I think I grew up in the environment to kind of build an entrepreneur. While I was at UVA for undergrad, I decided I wanted to join the military, and I served active duty for 8.5 years. And towards the end of my company command time, I realized that I wanted to maybe do the military part-time and move on to something different. And I actually did an internship on Wall Street a week after, or actually 4 weeks after I left command. So it was a very quick turn. It was back last year, right before COVID happened. And so I did this internship and I got to go for a week in person. COVID happened and I did the rest virtually. And I was really excited about the opportunity to work on Wall Street. But I think in doing that, I realized that I maybe wanted to take more ownership over what I was dedicating so many hours of my life to. And so I decided that going to business school was a better option for me at the time. My husband's also here with me, so we could be co-located, which is great. And taking that leap towards pursuing my MBA and then giving myself 2 years to start a company and see if it's something that I could really do and thrive in was a risk I wanted to take. You know, I turned the job down from Wall Street and pursued this path. But I really think my upbringing is what prepared me to pursue this journey and take a leap of faith on myself and see if I could build a company.
So being a first-year Darden student is pretty much a full-time job, and you started the business amidst that as well.
So
you sleep deprived at this point?
Well, I think the military does a pretty good job of getting you used to that. But I officially started the company this past July. So I completed my first year, and I did participate in a lot of forums and different events to start moving the business forward, but I officially launched it this summer. So I got through the core, my first year of business school, which was very, very challenging, and started working on this full-time over the summer.
Yes, and tell everybody a little bit about the products that you're producing and how you're producing them. And there's also a American-made spin to it.
Yes. Yeah. So as you can see on my virtual background, I am an artist. I paint watercolors. I also paint acrylics. So the idea behind my Made in America home good products is that I will source from local artists, starting with my own work, and make really nice and new and semi-homemade designs using this artwork and print those designs on a variety of home decor products. So right now I'm only producing textiles, and I make these designs, print them onto different types of textiles, and I have a few different SKUs available for sale right now. I started off with the kitchen towel, and now I have a few accent pillows and cloth napkins and table runners. And I've really taken the approach of bootstrapping the business. I wanted to learn everything myself and figure these things out prior to pursuing funding, because I think it forces you to be resourceful, and it forces you to really learn the business and understand the different directions you should go along the way, before getting yourself into maybe over your head. So this summer, I not only started painting again, but I learned how to make designs using software. And then also I learned how to sew. So my grandmother, who lives just down the street in Orange, Virginia, taught me how to sew this summer. And so that's kind of been keeping me pretty busy. I just started working with another sewer in the Charlottesville area to help me scale up. So that's been great as well, because you can't do everything yourself. You get to a point where you start needing to bring people in and build a bigger team.
You mentioned growing up on a farm and being resourceful in that regard, and that's helped you with the entrepreneurial journey. But I'd like to, ask you if you think your experience as a military officer with increasing levels of responsibility, including company command, how do you think that's helping you be a better entrepreneur?
The military changed the trajectory of my life. It was the most incredible thing I've ever done. I'm so glad that it just occurred to me that I needed to serve and pursue that for 8.5 years. I think that it has emphasized and highlighted some of the things that I started to learn as a kid growing up on a farm. But the biggest piece is the teamwork required to build something bigger than yourself. You need people with different skills and different backgrounds, and you need to understand how you can bring those all together to move a massive project that's bigger than yourself forward. So I think understanding teamwork was probably the biggest thing that I took away from the military that is going to help me be a successful entrepreneur trying to build a bigger company.
The Darden School itself is a great place for military veterans. It's got the Darden Military Association. Are there some resources there that you have drawn upon to kind of help you launch this thing?
Yeah, so the veteran network here at Darden is exceptionally strong. The DMA, the Darden Military Social Club, is my favorite social club here at Darden, but they've been so supportive of the things I've been working on. One of my good friends, Mark Delaney, who has his own podcast, featured me last week, which was really fun. And then I've also actually tied myself into the Army ROTC program here as well. I have to give back to the people who gave so much to me while I was here for undergrad, and they've helped to promote some of my products as well. I think they're going to feature me on their ROTC website. But yeah, the community here is very strong, and it's just nice to be surrounded by a group of very talented people who have a similar mindset and kind of give you that comfort in knowing it's okay to continue to pursue the unknown, because we all did it when we were in the military. We all had to operate in uncertainty, and just having those like-minded people around you and supportive of you is still really helpful to pursue entrepreneurship, because it's a little bit scary and there are a lot of unknown factors. So that community around me is great.
I don't know what the exact numbers are at the Darden School, but I believe that every year the school tries to make sure they have about 10% of veterans, in the classes, because you guys bring so much leadership experience, and it kind of helps the other 90% of the MBA students to rub shoulders with you guys. Hey, we're talking with Gretchen Pace. She's a U.S. Army veteran and the founder of Goose and Willow. I have a question, and just kind of curious. You were probably in grade school when 9/11 happened. You remember this? We're coming up on the 20th anniversary. You're part of what I call the next greatest generation, because I just really think that kind of like my father, who came back from World War II, you are going to be part of a great wave of prosperity in this country. Do you have a lot of friends that are coming out of the Army that you've talked to that are doing some or thinking about some of the same things?
In terms of pursuing entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
So I do actually. One of my good friends, Jeff Hansen, who's also a rising second year, he's very much considering entrepreneurship. My good friend Mark Delaney, who I mentioned is starting this amazing podcast, is pursuing entrepreneurship. Those are the two that come to mind. But I do think that, our experiences in the military really kind of shaped our mindset and gave us the courage to take that leap of faith on ourselves and move forward on entrepreneurship. It's not an easy route to take. I think it's far less common now than it used to be. And I do think the military prepares you for that pretty well.
Has there been some things about being an entrepreneur that have been more challenging or scary, maybe than what you did in the Army?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
And it may have been, because I served in the military from age 22 to 30. And so or 31. So I got a lot of those, very new and scary things out of the way. I lived in Korea. I was in Afghanistan. I lived in all of these different places. And before the military, I had always lived in Central Virginia. So that in and of itself was like a huge developmental period for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then also being in leadership roles was a huge growth and developmental piece for me as well. So I think the military was far more challenging than being an entrepreneur. And it might be that I'm just getting started and I'm a little bit naive about it all. But I would say the military was more challenging.
Okay. Going back, how did you decide to join Army ROTC at University of Virginia? Do you remember what the trigger was that day when you made that call?
Actually, I do. I kind of talked about the idea from as early as 17 in high school. I distinctly remember a conversation with my cousin, telling him that I was thinking about joining the Navy. I didn't know anything about the different services at the time. It was just the Navy seemed cool. You were on a boat. So I think it had always been in the back of my mind as a teenager. But then when I started college, I finished my first year and I went home and I was a lifeguard and a waitress, the same summer jobs I had as a high school student. So when I started my second year, I realized a lot of my classmates went off and did internships at Deloitte and other, different consulting firms and all of these things. And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I was already behind. And I need to make sure that when I graduate, I know that I am on a career path that is not only giving back to society, but is also going to lead me to bigger and better things. And it's going to be developmental. And I knew I was going to get that as a waitress. That was my biggest fear, was to graduate and find myself in that type of job. And so I was studying my second year in one of the libraries and just thought to myself, well, I don't want to go to law school right out of undergrad. I am a little bit tired I was a history and religious studies major. So I was already writing too many papers and reading too many pages a week. So I decided law school wasn't right for me as a 22-year-old upon graduation. But what did seem right was service. I'm like, I don't really have any close relatives who are active duty, but there was something that drew me to it and pulled me to it. And I reached out to the ROTC instructors. Army wrote me back first, which makes sense now looking back. And I set up a meeting with them, and I loved the instructors and the cadre. And they're like, look, how about you start training with us unofficially? You can participate, and then you can go to this summer course called the Leadership Development Assessment course at Fort Knox, Kentucky. And if you like it, then you can officially start the program your third year. So I went to LDAC, and we had barracks and the drill sergeants and the whole 9 yards to catch me up.
Was that a shock to your system?
It was a shock. But I loved it. And so those 30 days convinced me that I needed to join the Army, and I never looked back.
How did you end up getting slotted in the Intel slot?
Yeah, so the ROTC program when I was here wasn't that big. I think we had about 9 people. And the way they slot you is you get nationally ranked among all the cadets your year. And so I was in the top 15%, which qualified me to be a military intelligence officer. It was my number 1 pick, and I was fortunate to get it.
Were you a distinguished military graduate?
I was, yeah.
Okay, good,
yeah.
Good.
But the way that they make those determinations is a variety of things, to include your performance at LDAC, which is a 1-month assessment course you go to after your third year in Washington State, as well as your GPA, your physical fitness score, and your extracurricular activities.
I'm scared. I'm not going to compare PT test scores. You probably maxed out. You went to Afghanistan. That's been in the news a lot lately. You've been wrestling with any of the thoughts about, as we've been extracting ourselves from Afghanistan, and a little bit of the, I don't know, there's just a lot of Monday morning quarterback, and let's put it that way, about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. You got any thoughts on that? Tell everybody about what you did in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's been a really challenging topic to think about and ingest, and what is going on today. It's really sad from so many different dimensions and so many viewpoints. But when I was there for a year, from May 2015 to May 2016, I was working as an intelligence officer for the Special Operations Joint Task Force Afghanistan. And that was one of the most incredible experiences of my entire military service for a few reasons. One was, it was, a team of special operations folks, and they were the most talented people I was able to work with in my service. And the team that the commanding general, Major General Swindell, he's one of my favorite leaders from the military. He built such a phenomenal team of people, and it was that team dynamic that he was able to build and foster that really made that experience so incredible. But I started off, on night shift, and I worked my way finally onto day shift. I started out there as a lieutenant. Didn't really got lucky to be pulled into the team, but definitely had to prove myself. So I was able to get onto day shift, and then I eventually led a team of people doing targeting operations. And throughout that year, I was also given the opportunity to give intel briefs to the commanding general. And over time, it was something I was terrified of. And over time, I got much more comfortable and familiar with the process, and that was a really, really amazing opportunity as well.
Any emotions coming out with the recent events, though? I mean, imagine being in the intel community, you were in contact with Afghan civilians in particular, and I'm just curious how you've been coping with the events over the last 60 days.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. I think in the military, you kind of gain a knack of compartmentalizing things, which isn't necessarily healthy. But as events were unfolding, especially a few weeks ago, seeing those images on TV, it was just, it's just devastating, because I only served for 1 year in Afghanistan. Some people served 4, 5 years and sacrificed so much. And I think it's so sad from the American perspective, but also from the Afghan perspective, and all these people who sacrifice so much to support the mission. And I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is you need to think about what the end strategy is going to be, what the end goal is going to be, and how are you going to get there, so that, along that progression, you realistically setting goals and realistically pursuing missions that are going to result in the end state that you're trying to achieve. And I'm not sure that we did that very well as a nation. And it's definitely not an easy thing to accomplish. It's just, you have to keep that end state in mind, and then make sure all of your missions align to that end state, so that everyone knows the direction that you're going, and you're realistic about what you can and can't accomplish.
I think we're going to be debating the strategy and tactics of Afghanistan for years to come.
Honor, duty, service. At the VeteranCrowd Network, we're focused on our next mission, bringing veterans, veteran-operated businesses, and veteran service organizations together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. That's why we are launching the VeteranCrowd Rewards program exclusively for our individual and corporate members. Now you can save on travel, restaurants, goods, and services from brands you trust online and at over 900,000 locations nationwide. Find out more today at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. If you are a veteran-operated business, or a VSO, consider the connections, the network, the benefits, the engagement, and success of working with other veterans again. The Veteran Crowd Network, you paid a lot of dues to join this club.
Our guest is Gretchen Pace, U.S. Army veteran and the founder of Goose and Willow. Hey, Gretchen, a couple of things. Let's talk about what the next year looks like for you. Obviously, you're going to be heads down finishing your second year at Darden. But what do you think you've got in the future? You're still in the Army Reserves and you are starting a business. Don't tell me you've got something else planned too, but maybe you do.
Well, once upon graduation, you have to move somewhere. So I'll be headed to the DC area with my husband, Will, who's also a second-year student here at Darden. He'll be working for the Boston Consulting Group. So I guess that's the only other thing on my plate is the move coming up and immersing myself in a new community.
And growing Goose and Willow, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, all right. And you will continue to serve in the reserves. That's also the plan?
Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed my time in the reserves thus far. I've been in the reserves for about a year now. And it's been really nice that my unit is 10 minutes from my home here in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm in a unit that supports NGIC, the National Ground Intelligence Center, and it has a phenomenal mission set where we're doing real intelligence production that goes out to the community and informs a lot of decision makers. So it's really impactful. The team is composed of a lot of very talented intelligence analysts. So it's just a great thing. And I would say that if I was going to give any advice to someone getting out of active duty is just to sign up for the reserves right away. Because if you wait, you might not go back because you're kind of at a transition point and you're thinking you want to do something different. But I would say that I'm so glad that I still have that piece of me that is able to serve and maintain that identity. I think it's hard if you just completely put it in your past, and serving in the reserves is an incredible opportunity. You're going to meet amazing people who are also pursuing amazing civilian careers. So it's great for the networking and the learning piece of it as well. So definitely recommend the reserves to all my friends who are asking for advice on how they should think about the transition period, and 2 thumbs up from me.
Here's a different question for you. Did you consider other graduate schools other than Darden at the University of Virginia?
No.
Okay. And so would you, what advice would you give though to people that are considering pursuing an MBA, particularly folks coming out of the military?
So for one, I would say pursuing an MBA is probably one of the best and easiest ways to transition from active service to the civilian sector. So I think that there are a lot of really great MBA programs available, and you should look into, the top 20 programs, and do not discount your competitiveness for these top tier business schools. Because what you bring as a service member is uncomparable to the peers you're going to find at business school. They might be much better at Excel and much better immersed in the business jargon, but you bring this element of understanding about teams and management and organizational culture that most people have no exposure to. So the first piece of advice is, 1, pursue the top 20. 2, do not discount what you're bringing to the table, and go for it. Let those institutions tell you no. Do not count yourself out. And 3 is, if especially if you've qualified for the full GI Bill, give yourself that time to go back to school, to explore different career opportunities and to really learn about things that you haven't necessarily spent time doing or been exposed to while in the military. MBA programs do a great job of connecting you to different career opportunities, and there are so many recruiting events here at MBA programs that you won't even know what to do with all of your time. So give yourself that time to explore and take advantage of all the opportunities that are presented via MBA programs so that you can deliberately decide what your next career pursuit will be instead of rushing into something that you may or may not be a great fit for or really fully understand.
Hey, Gretchen, you mentioned maybe before we started, you had a pretty busy second year schedule. Have you got a kind of a concentration on some specific topics that you really wanted to be sure that you worked on this second year at Darden?
Absolutely. So finance and accounting and operations, I'm not the best at those quant heavy courses, but I'm also not terrible. And I really enjoy the challenge and signing myself up for things that I'm not going to learn elsewhere. Like, I feel like, certain things you can read on your own and you can learn on your own, but these very quant heavy finance, accounting, operations, what people think of when they think of business, those are the skill sets I've found myself focusing on while at business school, because I'm not going to be able to obtain those skills on my own elsewhere.
Now, one final question, and this is just out of my own curiosity. I think that in the military, we have a heightened sense of ethics and personal accountability. What's the I don't know, the state of the ethical studies going on in the business schools now? I know you could bring a lot to those discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. The ethics class, that is part of core. So that it's part of the curriculum that every single first year has to go through. Was one of my favorite classes. We really dove deep into different ethical topics and how you kind of systematically think through ethical decisions. I was actually really impressed with my classmates and their desire to want to make ethical decisions, because, coming from the military, one of the things that you hear is that in business ethics maybe don't apply. And I haven't found that to be true among my classmates who are very conscientious leaders and want to be ethical decision makers. But I would say that, being in the military for 8.5 years and having to lead organizations, you get exposed as a service member to a lot of different ethical dilemmas much more quickly and more intimately and more intensely than a lot of people my age. And so I was able, I think, to present various circumstances that I lived through firsthand that gave a lot of insight to some of my younger classmates. And I think that they really appreciated me sharing those stories and hearing those, because you can read about an ethical dilemma and you can say, well, I would have done this and that, but you don't really know until you're in the situation and you feel that complexity firsthand. And, it takes a lot of courage to do the right thing. And it takes a lot of wisdom and just life experience.
You brought some real life experience to it, I'm sure, to those discussions. Hey, Gretchen, how do people get in touch with you? How do people buy from Goose and Willow?
Yeah, so I am live on my e-commerce website called Goose and Willow. It's www.gooseandwillow.com. And all of the products I mentioned earlier are featured there. You can also find me via that website on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. And I would love it if you all would support my business and shop on e-commerce with the promo code America to receive a 10% off discount. And I'm excited to deliver this Americana-themed home good to you and your family. And it's all about supporting everything that makes America great. My company is supposed to unify us in a very polarized society against something we can all stand behind. America is a place that we all love, and it offers so much opportunity. And I just really want to celebrate the goodness that the country brings to so many people. So yeah, that's where you can find me now.
All right, well, we're going to put the links to her website and all of her social media handles out there so you can follow Gretchen Pace and Goose and Willow. Gretchen, thank you for being a guest. Thank you for stepping into the spotlight today.
Well, thank you, Bob. I've really enjoyed sharing my story and having the opportunity to talk with you and reach a lot of other veterans out there. And I appreciate what you do for aspiring entrepreneurs, because getting the word out is one of the hardest things. So I'm honored to have been included on your show today.
And we're helping the fellow Darden grads out here. So congratulations on what you're doing. Hey, you've been listening to the Spotlight on the VeteranCrowd Network. Our guest today has been Gretchen Pace, U.S. Army veteran, current officer in the United States Army Reserve, Afghanistan veteran, Bronze Star recipient, and the founder of Goose and Willow. Hey, Gretchen, I'm going to throw out an Army Bravo Zulu your way today for your performance, folks, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by VeteranCrowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at VeteranCrowdNetwork.com. We'll see you next time.